everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And for today's review, we're going to take a look at the new DC Comics 7-inch Designer Series J. Lee figures from DC Collectibles. There's 4 figures in the first wave: Superman, Batman, Catwoman, and Wonder Woman, and we'll take a look at all 4. They come packaged in the same kind of standardized window box packaging we've seen with the other Designer Series figures in this line, the Greg Capullo figures that came out before these. You've got the figure clearly displayed, then you've got the DC Comics designer logo, and then the name of the artist that the figures are based on, in this case J. Lee. For Superman we have white and blue packaging, Batman white and gray packaging, Catwoman white and purple packaging, and Wonder Woman also white and blue like Superman. On the sides we have artwork from J. Lee for each of the characters. And then on the back we have, it's the same on the back for all of them, and it just shows the 4 figures in the wave, and it tells us that the figures were sculpted by Jonathan Matthews. Okay, so let's get these open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the 4 figures outside of the packaging. Now we'll look at each figure individually here in just a minute, but I'll tell you, out of the 4, the Catwoman figure is probably my favorite. It's actually maybe one of the nicer Catwoman figures we've gotten from DC Collectibles in the 7-inch scale, so I definitely like the Catwoman. The others are okay, but definitely liking the Catwoman figure. Okay, we'll start off looking at the Superman figure, and this is probably my least favorite of the 4 in the first wave of this J. Lee line. The figure stands at just about 7 inches tall, maybe a hair under 7 inches. The main thing I don't like about the figure is I don't like the face sculpt. I don't like these little markings on his face. I know it's done to try and capture the overall look and feel of the J. Lee artwork, but to me it almost comes off like he's got scars on his face or something. I also don't really like the skin tones. All the figures suffer from, looks like they have almost like bloody noses, with the red that kind of is at the tip of their noses. And then I don't like the lip color for Superman either. It's almost like a maroon color. The cape looks pretty good from the front when you're looking at the figure at the front, especially like for flying poses. I think that looks pretty good. But from the back, it looks like the cape has been crumpled up on a floor someplace and is like super wrinkly. So I don't like the way the cape looks, the sculpting of the cape looks from the back. The paint detail on it's good. It's a nice crisp red, and it's got some black highlights in it to give it added detail. So that doesn't bother me. But again, it just looks like it's really been crumpled up from the back. I do like the sculpting of the S shield. You've got the little line work on the S, and again you got some black highlights. So I think that looks pretty good. And I like the black highlights throughout the rest of the body. I think that comes off looking pretty good on the figure as well. Batman, again, I don't like the face sculpt on this. Again, he's got the same kind of line work on the face like Superman. Looks like he's got a bunch of scars. He's got that dark maroon, almost looks like he's wearing a lipstick, which looks pretty bad. And the skin tones are kind of pale. The cape, I don't mind the way the cape is sculpted. I think the cape looks pretty good. And both the Superman and Batman capes are using that soft vinyl material we typically see with capes in this line, so it's got a lot of flexibility to it. The rest of the sculpting on this figure isn't too bad. The bat symbol is okay. I don't really like that with the wings up like that. I kind of like the bat symbol better, like we see on the Greg Capullo Batman. I think that looks better. Not a lot of detail on the utility belt on this one. Again, you get a lot more detail with the Greg Capullo Batman. The line work, is a little over the top on the body as well. It looks like he's got a lot of wrinkles up here in the crotch area, so I don't necessarily like that. The sculpting of the knee pads is pretty good, and the gloves, I think that comes out looking pretty good. So the main thing that kills both this figure and the Superman figure is the face sculpts. I just don't really dig the face sculpts on either of these 2 figures. So Wonder Woman I think looks a bit better than the Batman and Superman figures in this line. Wonder Woman stands at about 6 3/4 inches tall, so she's the shortest figure in the wave. She may be a little bit on the short side. I like the face sculpt for the most part. It doesn't have all the markings like the Batman and Superman figures have. She does suffer from that bloody nose syndrome that all the figures seem to suffer from, with the little red at the tip of the nose. But otherwise I think the face looks pretty good. The eyes maybe a little bit off, kind of has a blank stare to it, but it's not too bad. I've certainly seen worse eye jobs on DC Collectible figures. I like the sculpting on the outfit itself, and I like the paint applications. I think that comes off looking really good with the gold eagle breastplate. I think that looks good, and the black highlights on the red. And the skirt piece is done with that kind of soft vinyl material like the capes. And even nice detailing on the back and everything with the stars. I like the arm guards, especially this longer arm guard on her one arm. I think that looks pretty good. Kind of gives her that warrior princess look. The hair is pretty much just solid black with some blue highlights. Now she does come with 2 accessories. She comes with the sword, and the blade is just a silver metallic, not a lot of detail. The handle is a gold metallic paint, and it does have some black highlights to give it some added detail. She can hold the sword in either hand, but it's probably better to put the sword, she holds it more tight. You kind of have to push it in, and I don't want to push it in too much, so that's about as far in the hand as you can get, but she holds it nice and tight in the right hand. If you put it in the left hand, it fits a little looser. And the left hand is really better for her holding the staff, which is the other accessory that she comes with. And again, that's just done with a gold metallic paint, not a lot of sculpting detail. You do have kind of this yellowish wrap on the upper part of the handle, and then you've got some black highlights on the handle and at the bottom of the blade itself. But otherwise, it's just pretty much a basic paint job with a basic sculpt. It is a hard plastic. Both the spear and the sword are hard plastic, so you don't really have to worry about warping with this one. So finally, the Catwoman figure. This is my favorite of the 4. I think I like this one the best because it's probably the least stylized. She doesn't have any of those markings on her face. She does suffer a little bit of the red nose at the end, but I like the eyes. I think the eyes look really good on this one. Now she comes with 2 head sculpts. She comes with one with the goggles up above her eyes, and then one where she's wearing the goggles. And I think both head sculpts look pretty good. Now I do have a little bit of a paint blemish on the one with the goggles over the eyes. You can see some yellow has kind of bled over onto the gray part of the goggles. But otherwise I think that looks really good. And I also like the sculpting of the ears and the line work on the sculpting with the ears. I think that looks good. And just the overall sculpting with the line work throughout the body I think looks pretty good. Now basic paint, it's a solid black for the rest of the body. She's got the dark maroon lipstick on, and the skin tone is about the same with the others, but it's, I guess maybe because it's just not as much skin tone on this figure, it doesn't bother me as much. Now besides the extra head sculpt, she comes with a whip, and she can hold the whip in her right hand. And you have to kind of, to get her to hold the whip, you have to kind of string the string through the bottom of the hand and pull it up. I haven't been able to fit it, the handle through the other way. So, and the whip is just a string. It's not elastic or anything. It's just a long piece of string. It's probably one of the longest whips I've seen with a Catwoman figure from DC Collectibles. And I like the sculpting on the handle and everything. That's pretty nice detail. And I think this figure fits in nicely, you know, with other DC Collectible New 52 figures like the Greg Capullo Batman. Again, this figure is not as stylized as the others, so you know, one of the reasons why I like it is I think it would fit in with your other DC Collectible figures. And Catwoman stands a little bit, just under 7 inches if you count the tip of her ears. She's taller than the Wonder Woman figure, so I would say Wonder Woman is probably a bit on the short side, whereas the others, I think the scale is pretty good. Okay, so for articulation on these, it's pretty much the same on all the figures. There's a couple minor differences which I'll point out, but for the most part they're pretty much the same across the board. And it's okay articulation, it's not great. The head is on a ball joint, so she can, the figures can look left and right. They've got some up and down movement with the head, more down than up. Arms are attached with your standard ball hinge joint at the shoulder, so they can get the arms out good and good rotation. No swivel at the elbow, no bicep swivel. So for Catwoman, she doesn't have any wrist articulation, but she does have the swivel at the glove cuff. And the same goes for Batman, whereas like Wonder Woman and Superman do have swivels at the actual wrist. No midsection articulation on these, no kind of ab crunch and no waist swivels on these. The legs are done with those kind of T-crotch designs where the hinges are on the off to the side, so they can do pretty good splits, and you can get the figure's legs forward pretty good. Can do the legs back pretty good as well. The figures have thigh swivels, single hinged knees, and then with Catwoman, Catwoman has a swivel at the boot cuff, but no ankle articulation. So the others basically have no ankle articulation or no foot articulation at all. So Catwoman actually has one little extra bit of articulation that the others do not. And then one peg hole on the bottom of it. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, I'm kind of on the fence with this line. Again, I'm not a huge Jay Lee fan, so most of these figures don't do a whole lot for me. I do like the Catwoman figure. I think the Catwoman figure will actually fit in with other New 52 figures. It's not so stylized that it looks a little funny, whereas like the other figures, especially Batman and Superman, they're so stylized that I don't think they would fit very well with your other New 52 figures. Wonder Woman you could probably work in if you wanted to, and so you know Catwoman is the best, and Wonder Woman I would say is the next best, and then Batman, and then Superman last. The Catwoman figure is a good one. The others, and you know, I would say if you're a huge Jay Lee fan, then you probably want to pick up the others, but otherwise you might want to pass on them. So these are hitting comic and specialty shops now. We have a full gallery of images for all 4 figures up at toynewseye.com. There's a link in the description below. And as always, we ask, leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.